What's this I hear about you not wanting to play with the group anymore?
It's sissy stuff.
But you've always enjoyed playing the drums.
I was just a kid then.
How in the world do you replace a famous character on a hit TV show without the fans totally freaking out? It seems like it would be impossible, right? Well, for decades, TV producers have used some clever tricks to do just that. They'll find actors who look similar, or they'll just hope you're not paying close enough attention. We're about to expose all their sneaky swaps. Believe it or not, one show replaced a character and then made a joke about it on screen. 1. Carol Willick on Friends.
Mushroom. Smile. They won't all be like this. Some women might even stay through dinner.
Everyone who watched Friends remembers Carol. She was Ross Geller's first wife, who later realized she was a lesbian and left him for her new partner, Susan. Carol was a really important part of Ross's story, especially in the early seasons. She was the mother of his son, Ben, and their modern family dynamic led to some of the show's funniest and most heartfelt moments. The Carol we all know and love was played by the amazing actress Jane Sibbett. She had this warm and friendly vibe that made her perfect for the part. But here's the kicker. She wasn't the first Carol. Believe it or not, the very first time we ever saw Carol on screen, in the second episode ever titled The One with the Sonogram at the End, she was played by a totally different actress named Anita Barone. She looked quite different from Jane Sibbett, and it's a real shock when you go back and rewatch that early episode. The producers originally wanted a bigger role for Carol, but when Anita Barone decided she wanted to pursue a more full-time acting gig elsewhere, she quit. The role was then recast, and Jane Sibbett made it her own for the rest of the show's 10-year run. Most of us just blended the two in our memory. It's pretty wild to think a show as huge as Friends had a switch-up like that so early on. But replacing a recurring guest star is one thing. What about a show that replaced one of the main family's kids, who then disappeared for a whole season only to return as a different person? 2. Morgan Matthews on Boy Meets World.
My name's Morgan and I'm 5½.
If you grew up in the 90s, you definitely watched Boy Meets World. The show followed Corey Matthews from his awkward middle school days all the way to college and marriage. He had his best friend Sean, his true love Topanga, and his wise teacher Mr. Feeney. He also had a family, including a funny little sister named Morgan. In the first 2 seasons, Morgan was a cute, sassy little kid played by actress Lily Nixay. She would pop in, say a funny line, and drive her big brother Corey crazy. Then, at the start of season 3, something strange happened. Morgan was just gone. The family never mentioned her, and it was like she never existed. Fans were left scratching their heads. Where did Morgan go? The truth is, the young actress just wasn't enjoying acting anymore, so she decided to leave the show. For a whole season, the Matthews family only had 2 kids. Then, in season 4, Morgan suddenly reappeared on the staircase. This new Morgan was played by a different actress, Lindsay Ridgway. She was a bit older and had a more sarcastic personality. The show even made a joke about her long absence. When she comes downstairs, Corey's dad says, "Morgan, long time no see?" And she replies with a deadpan, "Yeah, that was the longest time out I've ever had." It was a classic sitcom moment, winking at the audience about the casting change. Swapping out a kid actor is a bold move, but the show handled it with humor. But what if the kid being replaced was part of a huge, famous musical family? The next show on our list did just that, and it was so quiet, it's still trivia night gold. 3. Chris Partridge on The Partridge Family.
Why are you the only one that does that?
It's because I'm the drummer.
I didn't know he played the drums with that part of him.
He doesn't. It only sounds like it.
I bounce up and down a lot.
Let's hop in our groovy painted bus and travel back to the 70s. The Partridge Family was a massive hit about a widow and her 5 kids who form a rock band and travel the country. It was full of catchy songs and feel-good stories. The family was led by Mom Shirley Jones, and the teen heartthrob was David Cassidy as Keith Partridge. The other kids included Lori, Danny, Tracy, and the youngest boy, Chris. They all played their part in the family band, even if it was just playing a tambourine. Here is where it gets a little fuzzy for a lot of fans. During the very first season, the role of Chris Partridge, the drummer, was played by a young actor named Jeremy Gelbwaks. He was a decent part of the cast for that first year, appearing in all 25 episodes. But truth be told, things weren't going so well behind the scenes. Reports from back then say that Jeremy's family life was a bit chaotic. His family moved around a lot, and he apparently didn't get along super well with the other kid actors on set. So, when the family had to move again, the show's producers decided it was a good time to make a change. When Season 2 started, a new actor was sitting behind the drum kit. His name was Brian Forster, and he looked similar enough that many people at home didn't even question it. He had the same shaggy 70s haircut and played the part with a quiet charm. Brian played Chris for the rest of the show's run, and he is the version of the character most people remember. It was a smooth and quiet swap that kept the family band from missing a beat. From one classic family to another, our next switch happened in a much spookier household, where the odd one out wasn't the musician, but the one who was considered totally normal. 4. Marilyn Munster on the Munsters.
Herman, you're so cute. You just give me vulture bumps all over.
Down on 1313, Mockingbird Lane lived one of television's most famous families, the Munsters. You had Herman, the big, lovable Frankenstein's monster. You had his wife Lily and Grandpa, who were both vampires. And you had their son Eddie, who was a werewolf. They were a creepy, kooky, and hilarious family. But there was one member of the household who didn't quite fit in with the spooky theme. That was their niece, Marilyn. She was a beautiful, blonde, all-American girl. The joke, of course, was that the rest of the family thought she was horribly plain and felt sorry for her because she wasn't a monster like them. The role of Marilyn was a key part of the show's humor. She was the audience's stand-in, the normal person reacting to all the supernatural weirdness around her. For the first 13 episodes, Marilyn was played by actress Beverly Owen. She was perfect for the part, but she was also deeply unhappy. She was in a long-distance relationship with a man who lived all the way across the country in New York. Being in California to film the show was making her miserable. It's said that she would often cry on set because she missed her fiancé so much. The cast and crew felt so bad for her that the lead actors, Fred Gwynne, who played Herman, and Al Lewis, who played Grandpa, went to the producers. They asked them to let her out of her contract. The producers agreed, and Beverly Owen left the show, got married, and moved to New York. Starting with episode 14, a new actress named Pat Priest took over the role. She also fit the part of the plain blonde bombshell perfectly, and she played Marilyn for the rest of the series. Because the character's main job was just to be pretty and normal, the switch went over smoothly, and many fans never even knew it happened. It seems like classic 60s TV had a thing for recasting. The same thing happened on another magical show from that era, but this time it wasn't a family member. It was a nosy neighbor who was always trying to expose the family's secret. 5. Gladys Kravitz on Bewitched Flying.
You read the sign, the door is out of order.
Not for Samantha Stevens, it isn't. How is that, Abner? Tell me, please explain it to me.
I'll explain it to you. You're out of order.
On a broomstick from one classic 60s sitcom to another, we land on the set of Bewitched. The show was all about a witch named Samantha who marries a mortal man named Darren and tries to live a normal suburban life. A huge part of the comedy came from her nosy neighbor, Gladys Kravitz. Gladys lived across the street with her calm, disbelieving husband, Abner. Every single episode, Gladys would see some kind of magic happen through her window. She'd see Samantha's mother flying, a person disappearing, or furniture floating in the air. She would then run over to her husband Abner, screaming, "Abner! Abner, you won't believe what the Stevens are doing now." Of course, by the time Abner looked, everything was back to normal, and he would just dismiss her as being crazy. The original Gladys was played by an actress named Alice Pierce. She was absolutely brilliant in the role. She had this perfect high-strung energy and amazing comedic timing. She even won an Emmy Award for her performance. She was the perfect foil for Samantha's secret magical life. But here's the sad part of the story. During the show's second season, Alice Pierce was diagnosed with a serious illness. But she was a true professional and loved her job so much that she kept her health problems a secret from the cast and crew. She continued to work for as long as she possibly could. Sadly, Alice passed away in 1966. The show's creators were heartbroken. They felt that Alice was irreplaceable. For a little while, they tried to use other nosy characters, like Gladys's sister-in-law, to fill the void. But it just wasn't the same. Eventually, they decided they had to bring the character of Gladys back. So, they hired another wonderful comedic actress, Sandra Gould, to take over the role. Sandra did a fantastic job, but she had a different style than Alice. Still, the character was so iconic that the show needed her, and Sandra played Gladys for the rest of its run, keeping the nosy neighbor tradition alive. Losing an actor is a tragic reason for a replacement. But on that very same show, another major character was replaced for a completely different reason, creating what is maybe the most famous actor swap in television history. 6. Darren Stevens on Bewitched.
You got your laugh. Now run along and let me go back to work.
Larry, we're not kidding. My wife is a witch.
Aaron, if you want a vacation, ask for it. You don't have to go through this fruitcake routine.
This is the big one, the one that started the phrase, the two Darrens. On Bewitched, the entire story revolved around the relationship between Samantha the Witch and her mortal husband, Darren Stevens. Darren was the stressed-out, flustered advertising executive who just wanted a normal life. He loved his wife, but he hated it when she used magic. His constant frustration with his magical mother-in-law, Endora, was a source of endless laughs. For the first 5 seasons of the show, Darren was played by an actor named Dick York. He was amazing. He was the perfect physical comedian with a talent for bug-eyed expressions of panic and frustration. But behind the scenes, Dick York was in constant, terrible pain. Years before Bewitched, he had suffered a severe back injury while filming a movie. He never fully recovered. To get through filming, he had to take a lot of pain medication. The long hours on set made his condition worse and worse. It got so bad that one day, during the filming of an episode in Season 5, he had a seizure on set and had to be rushed to the hospital. When he was lying in his hospital bed, he knew he couldn't continue. He quit the show right then and there. The show was a massive hit, so they couldn't just end it. They had a tough choice to make. They decided to do the unthinkable and recast the main male character. Starting in Season 6, a new actor named Dick Sargent stepped into the role of Darren. He looked a bit different and had a much calmer, more low-key acting style. The show never once mentioned the change. One week, it was Dick York, the next, it was Dick Sargent, and the story just continued as if nothing had happened. It was a bold move that has become a legend in TV history. Recasting a husband is one thing, but what about another important family member like the son on a hugely popular spin-off show? The next story involves just that, and it happened twice. 7. Lionel Jefferson on the Jeffersons.
Hey, what happened to you?
Oh, nothing. See, there was this fight in the school cafeteria.
I told you not to get in trouble. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Are you sure you're okay?
Mom, I'm okay.
Thank God, that's all that matters.
I'm glad you feel that way. I just got kicked out of school.
We're moving on up to the east side to a deluxe apartment in the sky. The Jeffersons was a groundbreaking sitcom and a spin-off from another classic show, All in the Family. It followed George and Louise, Wheezy Jefferson, a black family who became rich from their dry cleaning business and moved into a fancy high-rise building. A key member of the family was their son, Lionel. He was smart, level-headed, and often acted as the calm center between his hot-headed dad, George, and his kind-hearted mom, Wheezy. He was also half of a popular TV couple with his wife, Jenny. When the show first started, Lionel was played by an actor named Mike Evans. He was the original Lionel, having played the character on All in the Family as well. He had a great, easygoing chemistry with the rest of the cast. But Mike Evans was a talented guy with big ambitions. He was also a writer, and he became one of the co-creators of another hit 70s sitcom, Good Times. As Good Times became more and more successful, he decided to leave his acting role on The Jeffersons to focus on his writing and producing duties. So, for the show's second season, the producers brought in a new actor to play Lionel, a man named Damon Evans. No relation, just a similar last name. Damon played the part for a few seasons through Lionel's marriage to Jenny and the birth of their daughter. But then the story takes another twist. By 1979, Damon Evans wanted to leave the show to pursue other acting opportunities. And guess what? Good Times had ended its run by then. So the producers went back to the original Lionel, Mike Evans, and he agreed to come back. He returned to the role for the last couple of seasons before the character was eventually written out of the show. So Lionel Jefferson wasn't just replaced once, he was replaced and then replaced back. From a son to a daughter, our next show fast-forwards to a more modern sitcom where the oldest daughter was recast after the first season, changing the family dynamic quite a bit. 8. Kristen Baxter on Last Man Standing. Jumping forward a few decades, let's talk about the hit sitcom Last Man Standing. The show stars Tim Allen as Mike Baxter, a man's man who is the marketing director for an outdoor sporting goods store. He lives in a house full of women, his wife, and their 3 daughters. A big part of the show's comedy comes from his conservative views clashing with his family's more modern ideas. The oldest of his 3 daughters was Kristen. In the first season, Kristen was a young single mom living at home with her son, Boyd. She was played by an actress named Alexandra Krosny. Alexandra Krosny played Kristen as a bit sarcastic and world-weary. She was a young woman trying to figure out her life while raising a kid. The chemistry she had with her sisters was a big part of the show's first season. But when the show came back for season 2, fans were surprised to see a new face in the role of Kristen. The character was now being played by actress Amanda Fuller. Not only was the actress different, but the character herself seemed to have changed. This new Kristen was a little older, a little more mature, and had a slightly different personality. So what happened? Well, the official reason given by the network was that it was a creative decision. The show's writers wanted to take the character in a different direction. They wanted to age her up a bit and focus more on her relationship with her son's father, Ryan. They felt that Amanda Fuller was a better fit for this new version of the character. It was a pretty jarring change for fans who had gotten used to the original Kristen. But the show was a huge hit and ran for many more seasons, so audiences eventually got used to the new actress in the role. Replacing a daughter can really shake up a family sitcom. But sometimes the reasons for the replacement are much more dramatic and happen much later in the show's life, which is exactly what happened with our next character. 9. Lori Foreman on That 70s Show.
When? Yes, I had that ball last time. Holy mother!
Hello, Lori.
Hello, Kelso.
Let's head down to the basement in Point Place, Wisconsin for That 70s Show. The show was a hilarious look back at teenage life in the 1970s, centered around Eric Foreman and his group of friends. Eric also had an older sister named Lori, who was a constant pain in his neck. Lori was promiscuous, manipulative, and she loved to tease her little brother. She was the perfect annoying older sister character, and she was played for the first 5 seasons by actress Lisa Robin Kelly. Lisa was fantastic in the role, making Lori a character that fans loved to hate. But behind the scenes, Lisa Robin Kelly was struggling with personal issues. She had problems with addiction that were making it difficult for her to continue working on the show. For her own health, she had to leave the series at the beginning of the third season. Her character was written out, with the explanation that she had gone off to beauty school. She made a few guest appearances later, but her personal struggles continued. For the show's sixth season, the writers wanted to bring the character of Lori back full-time. Since Lisa Robin Kelly was unable to return, they had to recast the role. They hired actress Christina Moore to take over. Christina was a talented actress, but it was a tough spot to be in. Fans were so used to Lisa's unique and quirky portrayal of Lori that it was hard for them to accept someone new. The new Lori didn't have the same chaotic energy, and the character never quite clicked with audiences in the same way. After a short run in season 6, the character was once again written out of the show, this time for good. It's a sad story where real-life struggles had a major impact on a beloved show. Lori's replacement was tough, but our next show features what might be the most famous and talked about sister swap in all of television history. A switch so legendary they even made fun of it on the show itself. 10. Becky Connor on Roseanne. No list of character replacements would be complete without talking about Becky Connor from Roseanne. The show was praised for its realistic portrayal of a blue-collar American family. Roseanne and Dan Connor were raising their 3 kids, DJ, Darlene, and the oldest daughter, Becky. In the first 5 seasons, Becky was played by an actress named Lacey Goranson. She was the perfect original Becky, a smart, sometimes rebellious teenager who was just trying to grow up. Then, Becky did something that changed everything. She eloped with her boyfriend, Mark. Around that same time in real life, Lacey Goranson decided she wanted to go to college. She left the show to attend Vassar. At first, the show just wrote her character out, saying she had moved away with Mark. But she was a popular character, so they wanted to bring her back. For season 6, they recast the role with a new actress, Sarah Chalk. Sarah had a different, more bubbly energy, and she played Becky for the next couple of seasons. But here's where it gets really weird and funny. Lacey Goranson decided she wanted to come back to the show. The producers liked both actresses, so they decided to do something no show had ever done before. They had both actresses share the role. For season 8, Lacey would play Becky in some episodes, and Sarah would play her in others, depending on Lacey's school schedule. They never explained the change to the audience. One week, Becky would just look completely different. They even made jokes about it in the show. In one episode, a character says to Becky, "I can't believe they think you're the same person." It was a bizarre meta situation that became one of the show's most lasting legacies, the legendary tale of the 2 Beckys. Having 2 actors play the same sister is wild. But our next show also featured a sister swap on a more modern and much edgier series, and the first actress went on to become a huge star. 11. Mandy Milkovich on Shameless.
You talked to Lip?
I came by last Tuesday to say hi. I didn't come inside. Lip didn't want me inside because, didn't want to upset you.
Heading into the rough and tumble world of the south side of Chicago, we meet the Gallagher family from the show Shameless. This show is a dramedy, a mix of funny and serious that follows the chaotic lives of Frank Gallagher and his 6 kids. One of the important recurring characters in the early seasons was Mandy Milkovich. She was the tough-as-nails friend of the oldest Gallagher daughter, Fiona, and the on-again, off-again romantic interest for one of the brothers, Ian. The Milkovich family was even more wild and dysfunctional than the Gallaghers, which is saying a lot. In the first season, Mandy was a recurring guest star, played by an actress named Jane Levy. She brought a really strong, fiery energy to the character. She was tough, but also had a vulnerable side. She was so good, in fact, that she caught the eye of other casting directors in Hollywood. After that first season of Shameless, Jane Levy was offered the lead role in her own sitcom called Suburgatory. It was a huge opportunity that she couldn't pass up, so she left Shameless to become the star of her own show. When Shameless came back for its second season, the role of Mandy was expanded, and made a series regular. But with Jane Levy gone, they needed a new Mandy. They cast actress Emma Greenwell, who took over the role and made it her own for the next several years. Emma's version of Mandy was a bit darker and more intense, as the character went through some very heavy storylines. Because the first actress was only there for a handful of episodes in the first season, many fans who started watching later only ever knew Emma Greenwell as Mandy. It's a fun piece of trivia to see future star Jane Levy in that early role. Some sister swaps are subtle. But our next one, from a beloved family sitcom in the early 2000s, was probably the most obvious and jarring replacement on this entire list. 12. Claire Kyle on My Wife and Kids.
Yeah?
What's different about you?
What are you talking about? I just pulled my hair back, that's all.
In the early 2000s, My Wife and Kids was a staple of family television. The show starred Damon Wayans and Tisha Campbell as Michael and Jay Kyle, a loving couple raising their 3 kids in Stamford, Connecticut. The show was full of laughs and lessons about family life. One of their 3 kids was the middle child, a daughter named Claire. For the first 2 seasons, Claire was portrayed as the stereotypical awkward, nerdy, and somewhat clumsy teenager. She was played by a young actress named Jaz Ray Call. Then, at the start of season 3, viewers were met with a huge surprise. When the character of Claire walked on screen, she was a completely different person. The role had been taken over by actress Jennifer Freeman. And this wasn't a subtle, try to make them look similar kind of replacement. Jennifer Freeman was a different height, had a different build, and played the character with a totally different energy. The new Claire was suddenly stylish, popular, and a lot less clumsy. The show even poked fun at the massive change in the first episode with the new actress. Michael Kyle looks at his new daughter and says, "I don't know what it is, but you look like a whole new person." The reason for the change was a dramatic one happening behind the scenes. According to reports, the mother of the original actress, Jaz Ray Cole, was unhappy that a new storyline on the show would involve Claire having a boyfriend. She reportedly pulled her daughter from the series because of this creative direction. The producers were left with no choice but to recast the part, and they went in a completely new direction with the character, a change that no fan could possibly miss. That was a huge change, but it wasn't the most famous recasting of a main family member on a beloved black sitcom. For that, we have to go back to the 90s, to a story that has become the stuff of Hollywood legend. 13. Vivian Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Carlton, you are not going to MacArthur Park tonight. In fact, none of you are going to MacArthur Park tonight.
Now this is a story all about how a beloved TV mom got flipped, turned upside down. On The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Will Smith's character moved from West Philadelphia to live with his rich aunt and uncle in their Bel-Air mansion. His Aunt Vivian, or Aunt Viv, was a central character. She was a strong, smart, and elegant college professor who was also a loving but firm mother figure to Will and her own 3 children. For the first 3 seasons, Aunt Viv was played by the incredible Janet Hubert. She was amazing in the role, bringing a fiery passion and a regal presence. She was also a talented dancer, which was showcased in an iconic episode where she performs a flawless dance routine. But as the show became a worldwide phenomenon, rumors started to swirl about tension on the set. Specifically, reports said that Janet Hubert and the show's star, Will Smith, were not getting along. Their personalities clashed, and the work environment became very difficult. By the end of the 3rd season, the situation had reached a breaking point. When the show returned for its 4th season, Janet Hubert was gone. The role of Aunt Viv was now being played by actress Daphne Maxwell Reid. This was not a subtle change. Daphne Maxwell Reid had a much softer, calmer, and more motherly presence. Her version of Aunt Viv felt like a very different character. The show, in its typical meta-humor style, even made a joke about it. In the first episode with the new actress, the character Jaz looks at her and says, "You know, Mrs. Banks, since you had that baby, there's something different about you." For years, there was a lot of public back and forth between Will Smith and Janet Hubert. Thankfully, decades later, they finally reconciled during a reunion special, bringing a peaceful end to one of the most talked about casting changes in sitcom history. Replacing one iconic TV mom is shocking enough. But what about a show that replaced its matriarch 9 seasons into its run? Our next show did just that, and it changed the whole family dynamic.